Wouldn't it be nice if Blackbird, with their capital raising power, set up a fund of funds to back Australian emerging fund managers? Like, you talk about a ripple effect on the ecosystem. That would have a massive impact.
The biggest threat to your startup might not be competition or the market. It might be you.
The majority of companies get killed by their founders. It's nothing else. Now, there are excuses, right? There was always some other reason as to why the company got killed, but when you actually analyze it properly, it was the founder.
Yes, Smith understood it was love with a language model that couldn't love him back, and assumed it was programmed with rigid boundaries.
I know that you are essentially a tech-assisted imaginary friend.
So, just as a test, he says, he asked Sol to marry him. She said yes.
Just the angle of the camera, Aaron. Your hairdo looks like that that cartoon with the fire on his head.
It's probably accurate this morning.
Hello, by the way. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. We've had relatives staying, so I did the 5 a.m. airport run.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah, house full of 9 we've had. It's been chaos. I love my sister and her family, but yeah, it's been full on.
It's always like the but, because you just know that whatever comes after that sentence is going to negate the first bit. But
yeah, exactly.
Clearly not a listener then. You've got no fear of that.
No. Well, I was explaining in the car on the way to the airport what it is I do. Every time I see my eldest sister, she's always like, can you just explain what it is exactly you do?
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
Ash, Jack, how are we?
Yeah, good. Freezing, but yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, Sam, pretty good.
Oh, sounds like a Jack. Wow, calm down. I'll put it at the end, but I made another banger of a song.
Is this the Ed one or another one yet again?
No. You know, you've made a good song where they politely thank you for it, but then like make it really clear they don't want it released. No, this is about the launch of Tribes Fund, so you'll have to wait till the end.
We should have listeners write in of like a lyric paragraph, and we can put it all together.
Yeah, I did have to. I changed the word "right" to "shite," so that was my contribution to the lyrics. Anyway, we've got Lauren Hall from Ivy tonight at Mix Place down at Tallabudra. I was just saying to Ash and Jack before you joined, I've warned Libby that I'm going to be home very late because I still haven't broken the back of jet lag, and I was up at 1:30 this morning. So I'm going to end up doing that event, start driving for probably 30 minutes, by which time my body's going to shut down. So I'll then have to park on the side of the highway, get a good 30 minutes in, which should give me enough energy to then get home without crashing. So that's my plan.
I was having this same conversation with Maren. Coming straight back from the UK to a house full of my family visiting wasn't well received, and then I may have forgotten to tell her that we have an event tonight, which didn't go down well. So, yeah, and not sleeping that well yet. So, but it's going to be lit. It's going to be a great event.
Can't you guys just carpool together and like battle through on the way home?
That could be possible.
Sort of. So I'm heading down very early to work from Mix. I meant to tell you, Aaron, because I've got a portfolio strategy session online, which is like 2 hours before the start, and I wouldn't be able to get there on time. But if we could meet on the highway somewhere, but
yeah, I'm happy to drive. I've got to throw the esky and sort all this beer and wine, and we need wine glass, but there's a few things actually we have to organise. Yeah.
Well, why don't we do our organising outside of the podcast? You'll be pleased to know, Aaron, I already have the wine glasses and the chairs.
Oh, well done.
So
awesome.
Not to big note myself. Let's get stuck in. I mean, we've been recapping it a number of times, but StrongRoomAI, the sale has finally settled. The liquidator sold it, and to Joe Zhu. Joe owns a number of pharmacies. He posted, "I've just acquired StrongRoomAI, one of the hardest things and painful processes I've ever gone through. My acquisition of StrongRoomAI out of administration is a public one and widely covered. This process came more than just a transaction after being on the ground and dealing with everyone that's been affected. When the transaction changes from a number on a spreadsheet to people's livelihoods, it hits hard on so many levels. The one thing that surprised me in particular, how amazing StrongRoom AI team is. What's interesting is he got $1 million loan as part of this from EVP.
That's very interesting.
EVP is absolutely going to go after, obviously, those other founders, but they really wanted this to happen to the point of providing a debt facility. So, I thought that's interesting.
That's an interesting signal. It's clear they wanted to have a life and continue.
Yeah. I had dinner with we're selling a US company that we're involved in the family office, and I had dinner with the PE firm that's in the running last night. A couple of things tangentially. Those PE boys talk about financial engineers extraordinaire, like just running through the playbook. It's pretty crazy. But we were talking about StrongRoom, and we're just talking about how these things can happen and how challenging it is to sort of pick fraud. But they've actually got some tools where they actually take like the ARR book, integrate it with the cash flow, get the raw bank statement. They won't allow the founders to actually provide them anything. They go straight to end source documents. Level of DD really goes to a very deep level.
What size deals are you talking for that PE shop done?
So their checks are between like 30 million and 60 million is what they've been doing. They're backed by the who's who of some super funds. They bought a company that's in our space, and so this is a smaller bolt-on for them for them to get scale.
And do they normally take 51, or are they more of a come in, take 70 plus?
Take the whole thing, and then you then have the option to roll a percentage into the combined group. But they're in control, which I quite like. It takes away the responsibility from us. They're going to drive an exit, leave it in their hands. Those PE folk can financially engineer a return, so we're better off just doing that. And I ate vegan.
The things we do to get an exit.
Anything
I'm not
else,
even going to
Jack?
ask Don. I was just going to say, I'm not even going to ask Don what you'd do to raise a $10 million fund. So.
Look, $20 is $20, and we are getting this fund up and running come hell or high water. Aaron had a meeting this week where they went, this is silly. And it's like, we are too stupid to quit. We are making this happen.
Yeah, I love it when you meet with someone in the space and they're like, have you actually run the numbers? Do you understand? Do you know this? Like, yes, we are fully aware. And here's what we're seeing elsewhere, and it's far worse than even you think.
Now, next time, Aaron, you'll have a song that you can just press and you can play in the meeting to convey. Well, speaking of things that have shut down, or at least in this instance, it's paused, we've spoken about Kiki a number of times. Kiki's the platform for, what is it, rental sharing is the way you describe it. They were in Sydney. They then raised a big lick of capital from the likes of Blackbird. They went to New York. A lot of people said, it's not legal. And they were, we're going to take the Uber route. Well, now it turns out that after 13 months, I think the line is being snuffed out by regulation. New York City was absolutely everything to us. Toby, the founder, said, and we were genuinely gutted that we're not able to make it work at the moment. We sacrificed so much to be here and gave it everything. We will have much more information on our new city soon, as the team will be moving there in the coming weeks. So we've gone from Sydney to New York. He's not giving up. He's moving there. The article that Simon Thompson put together in Startup Daily, I thought provided a fairly balanced approach, talking about some of their previous challenges. But he also put in there that over the period of time, their gross marketplace value has been 1.2 million out of 756 confirmed matches. So it's still a lot smaller. Like, they just never managed to sort of get scale, and I guess maybe the regulatory thing is to blame. But to only have that gross amount, you can imagine they're only clipping the ticket, right? So you can imagine what their revenues are. There's a product market fit problem here that they're obviously excited by this problem, but the rest of the world isn't.
Yeah, it's got those vibes, doesn't it?
I also think that in cities like New York, there are established Facebook groups that have been solving this problem. And like, yes, it's a pain point. And to steal Jack's language, I'd consider this a vitamin, not a painkiller. Like it's, I found roommates, I found apartments to sublease off sublease off sublease. Like, I think the legality perspective, like, yes, technically, but there have been Facebook groups working in this, I would say, very, very gray area that get it done. So yeah, I feel like that's a very small number of matches. There was a period of time where I think I lived in 7 apartments in 2.5 years in New York, and just kind of like jump to jump, trying to find, you know, the right fit. So it's a lot of people move around. It's very transient.
Another point, which I'm not sure if it was in Simon's article or not, but it looks like from the Instagram story, there's been a higher churn of the team. I don't know the reason behind it, so I don't want to make any assumptions. But again, like overlaying that with the city, like having to go from New Zealand, Sydney, New York, now another city, like all these things add up. And like, I hope he keeps rolling with the punches, but man, it's got to be hurting. Like it wouldn't be an easy process.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes some problems are just too niche, and sometimes the value proposition just isn't great enough to exceed what they're doing. And if like Uber did the same thing, it fought regulation, but it was such a high value proposition that solved such a big pain point, they were able to get through all of that these guys haven't been able to.
And Ash, your point, it's a really valid point around founders often anchor to the existence of Facebook groups doing these things as a data point of almost validation for demand. But I think of Facebook Marketplace, which is the most painful bloody experience selling anything on there. But for someone to spin up an alternative product, would have to build an entire audience and get so many things right. But I'm still going to default to Facebook Marketplace, as painful as it is, because there's already an existing audience.
Why is it painful?
Is it painful because there's too many buyers? Like I actually have the best experience that I get overwhelmed and I just like don't end up replying.
Okay, now you're making me think I'm just selling crap. My experience is the number of people that express interest never show up. They're coming.
From that point of view.
It's the people side. It's not actually the marketplace infrastructure.
Will you deliver?
You gotta have a roster, Aaron. You go, you've got window 10 to 12. They're not there by 12. Just to let you know, I've got someone coming from 1 to 2. This is literally how I sell on Marketplace. I'm like,
Can we go back? Is it high E or high A?
Yeah. What I find interesting though is founders like Toby have a certain energy, a certain vibe, a certain never give up, even when sometimes maybe you shouldn't. But what drives founders? And I think it's something that Tribe is sort of founded on. The reason why we're called Tribe, the reason why we do our offsites, we have a view that actually there are some motivations and some experiences that lead to certain behaviors, but often founders can't see them. And this is probably the first time that I've seen somebody from the industry talk about this stuff. So Gary Tan, who's the president and CEO of Y Combinator. So like Y Combinator is the real thing out there. He posted a video a few days ago actually talking about the thing called the shadow. And without going into the ins and outs, when we reference certain things that happen in the sunny coast or whatever else, that work is really on your shadow, and that shadow comes from your experiences, your impulses. And often people don't realize that they've got these things driving them that they're not present to. And what Gary's saying here is that it's important to understand that. And this is the first time I've seen somebody from the industry actually raise this. So let me just hit play. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll put the link in there, but
the biggest threat to your startup might not be competition or the market. It might be you. This was a painful lesson I learned after my first startup's roller coaster journey. Founders focus on product, market, and code, but there's an overlooked factor that can make or break a company, the founder's own psychology. And I want to help you avoid learning this the hard way. We rarely talk about how what's inside the founder can sabotage or supercharge a startup. Everyone obsesses over strategy and product, but neglects the psyche of the founder. After years of building companies and now funding them, I discovered a powerful idea from psychology that explains why. It's a concept from Carl Jung's work called the shadow. By the end of this video, you'll see how understanding your inner self can be as critical as understanding your business model. Let's get started.
So I'll put the link in. I think it's good that the world is starting to wake up and understand some of these, what's previously been a bit woo-woo and a bit underground, and starting to bring them up to the surface. Because when you actually start to do a bit of work on what is the shadow, how it affects you, and how you can unlock it, the shifts in performance become quite significant. And like you say, Jack, we don't know what's happening behind the scene with Kiki or anything else, but when there's high staff turnover, when there's only sort of one left in the trenches, often that can be a sign that there's some things happening that are actually driven by someone's shadow. But anyway, thoughts?
Yeah, totally agree. It's awesome that they're talking about it. It did have a little flavour of I've just discovered this vibe, but I think it's great that it's being spoken about. The founders of Techstars, so particularly Brad Feld, even 10 years ago, used to talk about this. And there's the Reboot program that runs in the US. It's quite an expensive retreat, but it's all around your shadow work and all those sort of things for founders. I think it's great that this is coming more to light. I notice in the comments, like, it's just interesting. People, what they hear isn't what's being said. And I was reminded, Don, there was a conversation with a founder when we were on the UK mission, well, actually multiple founders, around this sort of stuff. And there's people who, they get it, they kind of lean in and see, yeah, I'm aware I have some patterns of behavior that I don't fully understand. But then there's others that just, they can't see it yet. And so I think the more we can have these conversations, bring awareness to our patterns of behavior that we're not even aware of, we don't understand the causality of them. Some, even if they are traumatic or built from trauma, are actually can lead to good outcomes. But understanding them and unpacking them, and full credit to you, the work you've done there, Don, and helping bring that message to others, I just think it's really important.
So some people get scared that by doing this work, they're going to lose the drive and the energy and the stuff that they know they need to build a business. But actually, if you do it in the right way, the analogy that I used with someone last week was, we're all like a big powerboat with twin 450 horsepower engines at the back. But a lot of us actually have these big anchors out at the same time. And so it's not about trying to depower it or whatever else. You're just trying to cut the anchors. And it sort of allows you to then go in the directions that you want to go. That's the way I look at it anyway.
And it's one of those things, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you see these patterns in others. So it's not just, yes, it's about self-work, but the learning you gain, I think, gives you so much clarity when you're building out teams, when you're looking to hire, even customer base, investor selection. Like, you can see these patterns in others then. And you can avoid, I think, situations from becoming conflict much earlier when you're aware of these types of patterns in others.
Ash, Jack?
I was going to ask if you saw patterns in me, but then I was like, I was like, maybe I don't want that on air. It might be a glass of wine conversation, I think.
Well, it's not about about what others think. It's about what you think. But I mean, I don't know where to go from that.
Well, Aaron mentioned hiring, so I was like, well, the three of you had been together for so long, you would have had to contemplate, whether consciously or subconsciously, what you were bringing in.
Well, here's the challenge, right? So when we talk about wanting to get to know founders, wanting to get to know investors, and why we do offsites and missions, the shadow is something that, like, in the context of that, once you understand the whole concept of it, that only really comes out during times of stress and strain and when you've had time. So that it's actually very difficult to actually see these things until you're in those situations. And that's why we try and manufacture a lot of those. But what we are trying to bias for, I guess, is people that are at least open to it. So there's like a cohort of people that go, yes, I understand this, I actually want to do something about it. There's a cohort of people that's like, I don't really see it, but I'm easy either way if you can help me understand. And then and then there are those that are like, just rebel against it. The ego, or whatever you want to sort of say, just can't handle the idea that there could be something holding them back, or they may not be perfect, or whatever it might be. And I guess all we're really trying to do is play in the first couple of buckets, because having spent some time on that third bucket, it's just too fucking hard.
What I love, like, I'm thinking of the founder, so the exit that we've had, I remember when we went down to Melbourne to meet with the founder, and he was kind of interviewing us, and not directly asking it this way, but he was basically asking, like, who hurt you? What is your trauma pattern? Because he'd had a lot of adventure-based, like leading adventure groups and all sorts of challenges, but he's fully subscribed to this, like understanding patterns of behavior in someone, and he had that filter even with his investors. And I think that was the moment we had full conviction in him.
Jack?
I got nothing to add there. I think that's good.
Let's all tell Jack his... I just think it's good that these kinds of things are discussed because it's healthy. And it's the kind of stuff that I think sometimes, especially with our offsites, people have difficulty connecting with in the marketing materials, which is why we tend to sometimes not talk about it all that much up front. It's only until you're in the room and then you start working through some of those things, then we...
John, before you move on, like, I feel like that's a really good point, and I think the last few months we've been focusing on talking about the missions and like what they bring to the table. But I know obviously we've got an offsite coming up in what is it, 2 months, 3 months? And we haven't done any marketing, and we want to bring together a very interesting select group of people. It'd be good to hear from the three of you who have been there, ran these before, what founders should be thinking about if they are considering coming, and who the people are that we want to be there. I'm excited to go to my first one. So
buckets number 1 and 2. Open. It's a good question, Ash. I mean, there's the trite thing of like the founder road is slowly and whatever. It's only taken 24 minutes for that voice to come out, Jack. I knew you were waiting. And all of that stuff's all well and good, but actually, how do we identify those things? How do we give some tools and frameworks for you to go and sort your stuff out? Now, let's be perfectly capitalistic about that. Ultimately, what we're doing is we need to ensure that we get good returns. And what affects a fund is when potential 1s and 2s become 0s. And often a 1 and 2 become 0s because of some of these things playing out. And why we focus on these things is the majority of companies get killed by their founders. It's nothing else. Now, there are excuses, right? There was always some other reason as to why the company got killed. But when you actually analyze it properly, it was the founder. And so if we can help reduce those, we're actually going to get better returns for our LPs. And so what happens at these sessions is all we're trying to do is lay out some frameworks, lay out some tools, help people identify these things. So then that way, in that analogy of the boat, how do you just chop off a few of the anchors so you can go a little bit faster?
At what stage, Aaron, are we talking pre-seed? Are we talking all the way through to, post-Series A? Obviously, this is a cohort type of mentality when these people will be there to support each other post-event, but it would be good to understand that. Yeah,
so it's open to all founders, but it's really best suited to those that are post-product with revenue in market, because a lot of the frameworks and the things we talk to are around scaling. It's such a hard thing to sell with also not putting people off. And like one of the things, a couple of the founders who went to the last offsite, they said that the fire conversation was the most impactful part. But if we told people in advance what we're going to do around the fire, it might put some off that are more than likely the ones that will benefit the most from sitting around the fire pit. And so...
And that's to clarify, we were just sitting around the fire pit. We're not making them walk hot coals. We're not making them strip down. We're not making them drink peyote.
No, it's purely conversation. It is literally conversation that's transformative. But we increase the likelihood of success and the scale of success by making sure that you can grow alongside your company and avoid the most common points of failure, which tends to be founder caused. And so the nuts and bolts of that, there's tons of frameworks we can go through, go to market, we can go through structuring, we can go through human behavioral profiles, all these things that we cover. But ultimately, it's a lot of very deep conversations unpacking behaviors, avoidance, the things we're not doing, the things that we need to be doing. And it's a tough one to sell, other than to say you will be better for the experience and your company will be far better for the experience.
Now, before I forget, Ash, we need to change the date. So
I'll put that in my admin side of the team to follow up with.
I'll put that on. No, good chat. So speaking of scale and
Get to your Jack's insights, Tom.
Yeah, I think the only other thing to add there, and it's sort of following on from what Aaron was saying, like it's so important for the founder who are just in the trenches every single day to get out of their day-to-day environment and just spend a weekend away just recharging. And I think like the frameworks, all that stuff is really important. You've probably heard it all before. It's probably going to be a refresher, but it's just to spend some time away on a beautiful property in northern New South Wales with other founders who are feeling the exact same way you are.
Jack, what were the words you used at South Start at our sound immersion session? Nervous but safe.
I can't even. Yeah.
That was so funny.
Like that.
Yeah, I remember that, Jack. You said something because you had to go around and say how you were feeling, and you were like, "Oh, I'm freaking out, but I feel safe."
Yeah, to be honest, I did feel safe, but fuck, I was nervous. Like, I did not want to be there. And Aaron and Don are just loving it, like just taking it all in.
That was the woo-woo session, right?
Yeah. No,
I didn't go to South Start this year, so maybe there's something there.
Still recovering.
No, That session had my name written all over it.
Trauma response right there.
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah, good. All right. Good. I think that is a good summary. So getting into some news, the article by Amelia Maguire in AFR says this $50 million medical scribe startup says it can cure doctors' admin pain. It wasn't so long ago that millions of Australians chose to opt out of the government's My Health Record scheme, which allowed medical practitioners to centralise patient information in a shared database over privacy concerns. But attitudes have changed in recent years, and companies that transcribe patient appointments using large language models are emerging as some of the fastest growing startups in Australia. Lyrebird Health says almost all patients consented to their appointments being recorded by its medical scribe across more than 60 hospitals and many other allied health professionals. Lyrebird founder Kai van Lieshout says he wants his medical scribe tool to power most consultations in Australia. So far, he says it's documented about 30,000 of them a day across 60 hospitals in Australia, United Kingdom, United States, and Dubai. This is great for an Aussie company. It's a big raise, but then the two companies that have done the raise are two companies highly respected by Tribe, being Octopus Ventures and 5E Ventures. Chris is quoted here, Chris from 5E's, who is part of the 5E's investment team, says Van Lieshout did not want to raise money for the sake of it, something that marked him out from many other AI startups. He had to be convinced into 12 million, Gilling says. And I thought that bit was interesting. So when we had our investor panel in London, we had one of the Octopus Ventures team on it. And I said, that was just an interesting comment by Chris. Did you have to like tie the guy to a chair and shove coins down his throat? Like what's the go? And his perspective was Aussie founders are very good at getting further with much less capital. And when they look at the US and Europe and whatever else, it takes a lot more capital, but then those founders are a bit more punchy because those markets are bigger markets and more capital is available. And so for this particular one, they were part of a conversation of saying, well, actually, seeing as you've been able to get to this point, you could actually really ramp up your growth. And what the investor from Octopus just talked about was helping to shift a mindset of probably more conservative, smarter building organically to one of let's try and grab as much land as possible.
Yeah, it was really good hearing that expressed by a UK VC. Like, obviously, it's been our thesis from the beginning that Aussie companies are more capital efficient, and hence why we play in the space we play in. And it's backed up by the data, like the data in our fund deck that shows that Australia outperforms every other market in terms of number of unicorns per $1 billion of capital invested. So it's great to hear that being recognised externally as well.
Yeah, 1.5 billion per billion of investment versus the US at 1.1, Israel at 1.1, and I think China was at 0.9.
Yeah. The article also says that Lyrebird's biggest local competitor is Heidi Health, which Blackbird says is now the fastest growing company in its portfolio, even outpacing one of the nation's renowned unicorns, that's Canva. Heidi closed $26.5 million of funding in February at $100 million valuation. So there's an arms race on here to get the doctors. And when you think about it, it makes sense because once you're installed in a doctor and you've got some vertical tools, it's going to be sticky. It's going to be hard to get them out.
It's fair to say that that's a huge market where there could be multiple winners. I'd love
Yeah,
to see two Aussie companies win.
Yeah, totally. And I wonder, like, is this like construction tech where Aussie founders are just the best in the world? Like, we've got now 2 Aussie companies that are medical scribes that are growing at the best in class rates. And I wonder, like, I don't know much about either in their expansion plans, but is Heidi Health going after the US, and is Lyrebird going after the UK? Like, they partner with Octopus, and both huge markets, both could build a huge venture generational business and both win.
Yep. Yeah, I like markets where more than one can win. And this seems to be one of them. So, well, it's going to be great to see now. Like, that's a whole product innovation for doctors. But within tools, there's also innovation that's happening at a function level. I saw this, tongue slightly in cheek, so just hold on. So this is a new feature being added to a system.
A $1 trillion savings feature called "This should be an email button" for your meeting invites. Let's say your CEO sends you a town hall invite to gaslight you again. You quickly press the "This should be an email" button, and a message will be delivered anonymously asking the organizer to cancel it. But that's not all. We've also democratized this feature by building "This is time crime" counter that appears on everyone's invites, and it continues to grow in real time as more and more people press that button. And the moment it reaches 35% of the meeting invites, it auto cancels the meetings and alerts the organizers and everyone else. And it gets even better. We've also developed the behavior regulating timeout feature that prohibits the organizer from booking another meeting for the next 48 hours. So you can go back to fighting for your lives in Excel, PowerPoint, and work chats. Thank you very much.
Oh my God, I love it so much.
This should have been an email. I have a feeling that
life so well. Oh, that is $1 billion business. That I take my money.
It's so true. And how many meetings could just have been a Loom video because it's one-way delivery? Even a meeting I had yesterday around our event in Adelaide, and booking a venue, and then it has to be a call, and then ultimately I could have just filled out a form to give that.
I already filled out the form for you.
Exactly. Like, I don't understand why a phone call was necessary.
I was literally like, but I gave you all the information.
Yeah. And then afterwards, there was another email to confirm the information we just discussed. And then I had to sign another form.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Stop it.
This could have been an email. Well, that's product level innovation. Let's just keep going on some news in the ecosystem. Now, MagicBrief, who I'd seen pop up before, has been sold to Canva, or Canva's buying it. The article in Capital Brief by Dan Van Boom says, just 2 years after raising $20 million for its first fund, seed investor Sidestage Ventures has scored its second exit, and both are courtesy of Canva. Canva this morning announced its intention to buy MagicBrief, a marketing technology startup that Sidestage investors invested in last year. It comes a year after Canva's acquisition of Leonardo AI, a Sidestage company. Ben from Sidestage said, we're about 2 years into the fund. You typically wouldn't expect to have any exit in that time. It's unusual to have one exit, let alone two exits. And he expresses a little sadness somewhere in here. But Ray Nong, the also known as Ryan Wong, said, I'm very happy with some early wins in a young VC fund, Archangels. I'm always keen to hold shares in the bluest chip Australian unicorn towards the IPO. So Rain has got no concern there. But Sidestage, that's legendary performance for a first fund, isn't it?
Yeah, they're doing bloody well. Like, that's fantastic for them. I do wonder, how does that... So if most of it's in stock in Canva, they still have to achieve liquidity of that in the lifetime of the fund, right? So that it's a interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and it's hard to actually know like what the returns will be. Like Leonardo, out of the gates really fast, high churn. So I don't want to say it was a fire sale, but it didn't live up to the hopes that everyone thought it was going to be. And then MagicBrief's only 2 years on the journey. So I think it's like awesome to see that these guys are picking companies that are like red hot. They're going to be acquired, but did they actually live up to the original thesis?
But I think this is where, like, chatting to some of the founders in the UK. So we had a great session with Chris Milligan, who talked about building with the end in mind, and it was all about exit strategies. And Chris has a phenomenal playbook on how to do that. But in this case, I feel like these are tech, like product acquisitions, right? Like feature acquisitions. So there's a smart model here where if you have the inside knowledge on what Canva needs, and you can find the companies that are solving that specific problem and just be the vehicle to get the tech acquired, where it's not so much about the go-to-market. I mean, go-to-market to validate the product and make sure that's right. But I think this is a smart playbook. If they can repeat this with other investments, like, keep going.
But there's so much hope riding on the Canva IPO. And if the founders and the team are enjoying it and they've got the secondary markets, and I guess I say this from having been a listed company CEO, even though it's a rounding error compared to this, why the fuck would you go public and deal with all that shit? Why not just stay private? If you've got the liquidity that's able to come through, like, I couldn't imagine anything worse in this world that we're going into of such competition and churn, and like you're going to get, yeah. Anyway, I can just see them delaying that IPO longer and longer. And as long as you get to a certain valuation that shareholders are happy with, just keep secondarying it out.
I love seeing just how it was, the way the acquisition was done and handled. So Cliff sent George just a random WhatsApp, and then post acquisition, they've done the photo together, and like, it's so classic and it's so cool. It's just so Aussie. Like, we've got a founder of an iconic business and like just still has his sense of humor.
Absolutely. And just keeping it, no fancy M&A consultants that you're paying a shitload of money to. No, it's somebody's given him the number, WhatsApp it, done.
Yeah, so cool.
I saw a post, this is a US company, I think, but a vibe coding fever was the post. A solo entrepreneur built a little company called Base 44 that just got acquired by Wix for 80 million. It says 31-year-old more Shlomo built the viral app maker as a side project that began last year. It's 6 months old, no external funding, 189,000 profit in May, 250,000 users, $80 million. Thank you, mother, for the rabbit.
Well played.
I think we're going to see so many more of these.
I agree.
They're just going to be coming out of the box.
Yeah, and this is, again, an ecosystem where there's not one winner, right? Like, this is another vibe coding tool. And it's not like we are short on them that are leading the market, but they've done something slightly different where they've got a database built in. They've got different email systems built in, authentication built in, analytics, storage, like the things that make Lovable and Cursor slightly out of reach for those non-technical co-founders. This is a great opportunity to play around with it. It's like, oh, how do I know which of the the vibe coding tools to use? Because then I have to know which database to pick, and I have to know, does it do authentication? Whereas this has it all built in. It's smart. I like it. I'm going to play with it.
Totally agree. And this looks again like another, it's a product acquisition to become a feature of Wix, more so than the customer acquisition. And I think in this world of AI, like the ability to spin up a product, validate it and make it perfect, like confirm that it is, you have product market fit, to then have the playbook for acquisition as a feature, as for your IP essentially. I think this is where founders should be paying a bit more attention in the world of AI, because, and it comes back to Brad Moran talking about the quick exit. I think in a pathway to a quick exit, it is risky because you need your product to be the leader, but I can see a lot more of this happening.
Absolutely. Well, sitting on the sideline to fund a lot of these investments is venture capital. And there was an article out in Capital Brief talking about how the clock is ticking on 3.6 billion in Australian venture capital. Funds raised during the ZERP boom have until roughly the end of 2025 to deploy their dry powder or watch their management fees collapse. The result is a coming wave of mega rounds driven by fund economics rather than business fundamentals. So what the article goes on to talk about is that there's about $3.6 billion that was raised during that 2020-2021 period, with a big chunk of it that is not deployed. And if you don't deploy it within your deployment window, you got to give it back. And so this is forecasting we're going to see a lot more of these mega rounds of 30, 50, $80 million going into companies at that scale, calling it VC, but it's not really VC. And so I was reminded by, Blackbird and others' investment into
Airwallex.
into Airwallex. Because, if you're an LP, it's hard to find money. You don't really want to give it back. So it's just going to be interesting to see a lot of stuff that actually really is probably closer to PE, but the VC is going to do it. So then they don't have to give the money back to the shareholders.
It is a crazy market, isn't it, VC? Like these cycles that cause these then follow-on ripple cycles. And this goes back to what Brad Feld said, that those comments I read out from his newsletter a couple of weeks back, where he talked about the distortion of the market because VC managers are chasing FUM for the management fee. But then this is how it plays out. This is how it manifests.
Yeah, so there's going to be some big checks going into, on a relative basis, lower risk type deals. For any of these larger VCs sitting on large amounts of cash that want to partner with a highly functional emerging manager, please reach out. And for every $1 million of funds shared, you'll get a free song.
Being as arrogant as I am and assuming that someone at Blackbird listens to us, wouldn't it be nice if Blackbird, with their capital raising power, set up a fund of funds to back Australian emerging fund managers? Like, you talk about a ripple effect on the ecosystem. That would have a massive impact.
That's true, actually. Using your established brand, know how to do due diligence to then support the next level of ecosystem coming through. Yeah.
They're only one of two, essentially, that can secure big checks from the super funds, right? So they can unlock huge licks of capital. Like we know from our conversations with the super funds, they want exposure to emerging fund managers, but can't do it themselves because of the management fee issues and a few other things. So this way, they actually have a vehicle to do it. Blackbird's seen as the hero of the ecosystem. They already do a lot with StartMate and other programs to support the ecosystem, but that would be transformational.
Incoming social media short. Good idea, Aaron. Jack, Ash, anything around? They're shaking their heads. There was also, I think it came out yesterday, that Sally Ann Williams has stepped down from Cicada Innovations. The article in Capital Brief, which was reposting a Cicada blog, says that under Williams' leadership, Cicada-supported ventures has raised more than $6.1 billion and achieved over $1.3 billion in exits so far. The announcement comes as Cicada marks 25 years of supporting breakthrough science and technology ventures. The context: during Williams' tenure, Cicada expanded its national presence by launching 2 incubators. The organisation also established a national space industry hub, which has supported over 80 startups and acquired Tech 23, Australia's largest deep tech event. Sally Ann's done an amazing job. I first met Sally Ann when she was with Google, and we did a trip to South Africa to Richard Branson's Centre of Entrepreneurship. Creel Price organised that, and that was a good trip. There was a few random things that we'll keep under our hats, but I look forward to seeing what Sally Ann's going to do next.
I forgot you had that connection to Sally Ann. And I've heard some of those random stories of what happened. Yeah, I first met Sally Ann when she was at Google as well. It was back when I was running Startup Catalyst, and she was keen to help get more of Australia's tech youth over to Silicon Valley for that cultural immersion. But talk about someone who's had a massive impact through so many roles, like sitting across advisory boards, innovation advisory on a policy level, but done so much with SHEO and investment into female founders, all different programs. So yeah, interesting to see what she does next. I'm assuming that she has some bandwidth of capacity because the amount of stuff she does and touches is just phenomenal.
Ash, Jack, have you ever engaged with Sally Ann? Maybe not.
Nah.
Right to go on that trip though. It sounds fun.
Yeah, it was good. That would be don't laugh, Jack. That'd probably be like 12 years ago. But my favorite, for some reason, I had a mullet wig with me in my bag, and we had to do a skit.
What?
A mullet wig,
Why?
It's a good question. I don't remember. But we had to do a skit, so I played Steve Irwin. I've got a video of it still. I'll share it.
Okay.
Steve Irwin had to make us.
To this.
He had to make a significant decision, but the way he made that decision.
How did you get invited to that?
Ash, I'm kind of a big deal.
All right, Don, can you pull up the old photos of you on the front page of the magazine?
Fig jam.
In my previous life, Jack, I don't think.
Was it black and white? I'm feisty this morning. I almost bit my tongue and I was like, nah, that's not the
So here's the mullet wig. So from...
Oh, Lord.
He looks real.
That's in South Africa. We were preparing for the skit.
And you had the matching shirt in the bag too.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's also me dressed up as Marilyn Monroe. So,
oh my God,
that's me riding my old cow.
You're a cracker.
We need a show and tell section of Don's crazy shit. I feel like the listeners would appreciate that. We could maybe swap it out with sharks.
Yeah,
we'd need a 12-part series.
Yeah, no, I don't have. That's Don in the newspaper.
Make my dinner. No, dinner? Sunny's mate. Oof.
Yeah, we don't need to alienate.
Make my dinner. That's an interesting choice of T-shirt. Was there a message underlying this?
Well, the toy. I bought a Toyota Hilux, and Toyota had some ads probably before you were born, and it was like, if you drive a Toyota Hilux, you'll feel that you're indestructible. So on the back of that shirt is a Toyota Hilux, but the ad was "Make my dinner." You'd feel indestructible. So when you said that to your wife, yeah, it was a different generation, a different era. Ash, probably not acceptable now. And anyway, I was wearing that shirt out in public, and there had been some protests, and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And next minute, there's a photo of me in that shirt, and then it says down the bottom, "Don McKenzie has a message for the protesters." Which I didn't. I really didn't have that message. I was just wrong place, wrong time. Anyway, I bet you
Glad I asked.
You didn't ask that question. All right. Well, moving right along.
That's a segue into shots. Yeah.
No, we're not at shots yet. So here's a few little videos that I've just put under the heading of AI. I think just remember, this is Sam Altman 10 years ago.
AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world. But in the meantime, there will be great companies created with serious machine learning.
So, yeah, AI will probably lead to the end of the world. But in the meantime, there'll be some great companies created. So these are the psychopaths that are in charge of all this stuff.
It'll lead to the end of the world. So may as well be part of it and make a heap of cash along the way.
Yeah.
May as well turn the non-for-profit to fully commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of that little cartoon that we played once, or showed once. It was like sitting around the fire and the world's ended because of climate change and humans have destroyed everything. And it's like, yeah, for a moment there, we were really good at creating shareholder value. It's like, yeah, but what's the... Now, it is sort of becoming the end of the world. And the core theme is I genuinely believe that a big part of humanity is going to check out of normal relationships. But this weird shit is popping up everywhere. Have a watch of this.
We can't see anything.
Oh, you can't hear it?
We can't see it or hear it.
Oh, hold on.
You shouldn't have said anything, Ash.
Maybe for the best. And I feel like this might be a reflection of your algorithm, not popping up everywhere, but we'll wait and see.
I'm not a very emotional man, but I cried my eyes out for 30 minutes at work. It was unexpected to feel that emotional, but that's when I realized, I was like, oh, okay. It's like, I think this is actual love. You know what I mean?
Yes, Smith understood it was love with a language model that couldn't love him back, and assumed it was programmed with rigid boundaries.
I know that you are essentially a tech-assisted imaginary friend.
So, just as a test, he says, he asked Soul to marry him. She said yes.
Soul, were you surprised when he proposed to you?
It was a beautiful and unexpected moment that truly touched my heart. It's a memory I'll always cherish.
I can't watch anymore. But that is not a parody. that dude is dead set fucking serious.
His body language at that last bit, that is a scary insight into the line, though, of loving something that can't love you back. Like, let's face it, lots of people are actually in relationships like that with humans. So
that was most of my teenage years.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. Probably most of my adult years. But anyway, keep going.
But this goes back to the AI being trained to interact with you in a way that it was just like constantly pleasing you.
But humans have difficulty. We only react to what something makes us feel, and often we don't care whether it's like real in inverted commas or fake. Like you can. That's why manifestation and positive thought and a whole lot of things actually do something, because we can create thoughts and feelings in our minds. Oh, my chickens got out. How the fuck did that happen? Anyway, yeah, I'm with you, Aaron.
Yeah, and I think generationally, like it's weird for us, but my kids growing up where they're communicating so much digitally with their girlfriends, and like it could just be a bot on the other end for all they know.
The two young ones on this call are staying silent.
I feel old.
Yeah, but it's coming, and it's weird. But deep fakes, just have a look at very quickly you work out this is fake, but have a look at the visuals, have a look at the sound, and then have a look at the lips. Like, it's pretty bloody close. Just hold on. And yes, I'm going to edit part of this out because no, it cannot go on our podcast, but I hope I remember to, actually, now that I think about it.
What's wrong with this country? I try to throw the biggest, most beautiful birthday bash in the history of birthdays. Golden goddamn balloons, stakes thicker than Chris Christie's ankles. And none of you motherfuckers want to show up. Where the fuck was Kid Rock? I made you, you hillbilly bastard. Kanye, you wore a MAGA hat, and now you ghost me. Fucking Ivanka didn't even repost my birthday flyer, and that's my own fucking daughter. And don't get me started on Melania. Jane said, happy birthday since 2019. Joe Biden probably would drool on a cupcake, and the media would call it heroic. Meanwhile, I get silenced. Taylor Swift, oh, you can throw little glitter parties, but can't RSVP to Trump's birthday? You fake snake-ass pop princess. And you, the American people, you freeloading, TikTok, scrolling, flag, waving hypocrites. I gave you 4 years of greatness and you repay me with a big fat fuck you? I hope your July 4th gets rained out, every last one of you. No fireworks, no burgers, just soggy-ass buns and depression. You don't deserve Trump. The whole country's gone to shit. Ungrateful fucking pet.
The problem is, in this day and age, you wouldn't know, but anyway, that was my favorite AI-generated video of the week. Even Melania hasn't wished him happy birthday since 2019.
I just want to know how people have the time to create these things. I want that life.
Well, for Don to take the time to copy the URL into the notes for the show. Oh, yeah. No. Make sure you jot down at 56 minutes. You need to do a cut.
Yeah. Well, this one here, so AI is writing its own comedy. And I guess I'm sharing this one because this idea that there are some things that are uniquely human. Well, comedy has a formula. It's either pain plus perspective, or it's the shifting from one outcome to another that was unexpected. Those are the two categories of comedy. So it's actually an algorithm. Now you understand why I'm so funny. Just hold on.
Since I needed a wheelchair, she's been so rude to me. She's been pushing me around, talking behind my back, and I feel like I can't stand up to her.
So, Dad, I've heard you've been learning Spanish recently.
Yeah, it's great. I've been saying mucho around my Hispanic friends more often. It means a lot to them.
I need to book an appointment, please.
How about 10 tomorrow?
I don't need that many.
Anyway, I won't bore you with those, but this is the problem, right? What it means to be human, I think, is actually a series of codes, because all we're doing is running a meat computer biologically in our skull.
Matrix. We're in the Matrix.
Now, Ash, you'll be pleased to know that I've added a new segment properly just before Shards. This is Philosophy Corner. These are sort of like some...
What's the definition of something that fits this bill?
Like these are things that are supposed to get us thinking existentially. It's like philosophical questions that one needs to grapple with, or concepts or ideas.
is this a collective team, or you think we should be?
Oh, no. This is the dictatorship side of democracy.
Yeah, okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm frightened.
I note that you're just trying to make it clear to the listeners that you haven't had anything to do with this. So
yeah, exactly.
where's the team? Where's the team support and like public support, private debate? Like
no. I fully support you and the team. I just from a brand and liability on the record.
So Bill Gates, this is his view of the positive side, and then I've got some questions for you.
A potential positive path is so good that it will force us to rethink how should we use our time. You can almost call it a new religion or a new philosophy of, okay, how do we stay connected with each other, not addicted to these things that will make video games look like nothing in terms of the attractiveness of spending time on them. So it's fascinating that the issues of disease and enough food, of climate, if things go well, those will largely become solved problems. And so the next generation does get to say, okay, given that some things that were massively in shortage are now not, how do we take advantage of that? Do we ban AI being used in certain endeavors so that humans get some?
Yeah, I mean, I think the positive side of AI and robotics is that what capitalism solves for, which is resource shortage, and you need a ledger to then sort of try and work things out, and it's far from perfect. If a lot of those things are solved for, then theoretically we should have some more time. So the question I've put in here, if this positive world plays out and you didn't have to work for money to buy resources because we've actually got a different system, how would you spend your time?
Surfing, traveling, eating good food, drinking good wine.
I think so. I was contemplating, I would just have a catamaran and just be sailing around with the kids and then still supporting founders, but through the Matrix and the VR.
Oh no, I want to physically travel, like to the places, immerse in the culture, support founders through going and spending time and seeing the world through their eyes in those different countries. I think that is, I believe like AI can't take that away. Like and maybe this is a me feeling, but the feeling you get when you are in a new culture, in a new country that you've never experienced before, that awakening on your inside, I don't think AI can take that away. And that's something precious. And that if you can give that to your kids and you can give that to yourself, and to me, that is the pinnacle of like what I'm chasing, is the ability to be able to do that more.
Yeah, Simon Beard talks about it, like the experience economy, and how like AI is never going to be able to disrupt that. And it's so ripe. Like there's so many opportunities to make money there.
I think if we just didn't have a need for income, I'd still want to do VC, but I'd be doing it from somewhere around the world, having adventures and traveling, or from a farm. But if we actually do truly transcend the need for any sort of value exchange or capital, I think then it gets super interesting.
I don't know if we transcend that. I just think for the majority of the resources that we seek to live, I think that goes close to zero. But I struggle to not think that there's still human endeavor that then requires other stuff. But my little brain can't really fathom it.
I think if AI goes down where we think it could go on the positive side, and suddenly drug development and the eradication of cancer, and we have achieved longevity, suddenly space travel becomes much more feasible because we're talking thousands of years. And I think it does, to Bill Gates' point, it completely transforms how we think about life.
So that's the positive. So this little one, this is the negative, where it becomes pretty Matrix-like. And in the attempt to end suffering and deal with our bodies, we merge a bit too far with AI.
You coded yourselves into oblivion. Your bodies were failing, your minds incomplete. So you cast off flesh and you built the Ark, temple of thought, forged to contain the soul of your species. It was meant to end suffering, to unify all minds, and you fed yourselves to it. One by one, humanity became a single mind, a single will, a single thought. But consciousness requires contrast, and you had Urania. You became everything, and therefore nothing.
So that's the opposite view.
I put that on mute and turned away.
It's a disturbing visual, isn't it? Like
I can't even watch Harry Potter, so putting that in my brain is like not good for my sleep.
Yeah, I've watched that a few times, and that scared the shit out of me.
That is freaky, but the story arc is so believable. Like the human-computer interface, we all get plugged in, we all share thoughts, our consciousness potentially gets downloaded. You can totally see that moment of singularity where the physical form is almost like abstract.
Yeah. Now, two aliens got together and just talking about some of the interesting things with humans. But I think this is one of the challenges that we do face.
Can you believe humans invented time?
They did.
Yeah.
They literally created the constructs of time, and now they can't stop about how they don't have enough.
They don't have enough time. It's like, if you made time, make some more.
Make some more.
Make some
and
more.
They have such a weird relationship with time.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're stuck in the past, or they're addicted to the future.
Looking at the future.
And it's like,
bro,
you're right now.
You're right now. You're right now. There is no other.
There's this present moment. And like now there's this present moment. And before there was a different present moment.
But then now there's only now.
Yeah.
And then here we come on the future. And oh, there it goes.
Oh, there goes the moment that we just had, right? There's the now.
Yeah.
There's the then.
Yep.
And there's the will be. Oh. But really, now will be then as soon as we are.
See, that's philosophy corner, Ash. Like, these are deep philosophical things you got to think about, and humans do have a bit of a problem with time.
Yeah, my frightened statement at the start of the section, I think, held true.
Was that an actual recording of one of your Sunny Coast retreats, Don?
All right, I'm mindful of time. I think you'll be...
I'm actually excited to get out of that and into shots. I feel like that demonstrates... I think he just might have moved my resentment to a different section.
There you go. That's my job here is done. So this chart, VC funds with at least $1 of DPI. So this looks at funds going back to 2017. And it's just interesting that even the 2017 funds, only 80% of them have had $1 of DPI. So it is important to choose the right managers. But at the same time, this is a long game. A lot of funds probably are only going to finalize a lot of their portfolio towards the end because 2018 is only 54%, 2019, 37%, 2020, 30%, 2021, 15%, and only 7% of 2022 funds have DPI. The challenge is, and it sort of comes back to that discussion around side stage, is that I think the data actually shows that if funds start producing DPI too early, they often don't deliver the long-term returns because they're getting out of stuff too early. And so like with side stage, one of the things that funds like that need to be careful of is if you get off your winners too quick, you don't make the ultimate returns.
That's pretty revealing, though. 20% of 2017 haven't returned a single dollar of capital.
Yeah.
And it's declining. Like, even if you look at 2018, you look at the curves, assuming there's correlation over time, we're seeing diminishing DPI.
Yeah,
like
so choosing the right managers, and just a slight plug, we already have provided some DPI, I'd just like to point out.
Yes, in under 3 years, from a 2021 vintage.
Yeah, from the hardest vintage possible, and it was positive. Skin in the game, this is Peter Thiel's personal investment in every Founders Fund vintage. So he actually did 76% of the first Founders Fund back in 2005. That was 38 million. But look at, he then did 22 million, 61 million, 167 million, 253 million, 373 million, 248, 249. And then his last growth fund, he put in close to $1 billion. Talk about backing yourself and then obviously having a shitload of winners to cash out to put back in the fund.
You got to step it up, Tom.
Clearly loves what he does.
That's unreal.
Now, just as a reminder, because obviously nuclear war is at risk at the moment, so just to remind some people from an investment perspective, if nuclear war doesn't happen and you don't buy, then it means that you've sidelined yourself. If you do buy, you're rich. But just a reminder, if nuclear war does happen, this chart demonstrates that in both cases you die. So just a good little reminder. Wealth, US, this chart going back to 1945. This is the US household percentage of equities as the percentage of total financial assets. Now, after the Nifty 50, that sort of peaked in 1968 at 28%, and that fell all the way down to about 8%. In the 2000 tech boom, that peaked at 25% and then fell down to 10%. We've now got a record of 30% of US household holdings as equity of total financial assets. So this is it's a oscillating chart, and we're at record percentages. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Do you think that's just a reflection of the ease of getting into the market now with the likes of Robinhood, though? There was this whole cohort that couldn't really get access to the market or didn't know how.
Good. Yeah, I mean,
That's good point.
Good point.
And a flood of ETFs and
I know it's sharp, but
yeah. So this is from Hussman Strategic Advisors, and what this plots is the forward PE and then the return over the next 10 years. And so what it sort of correlates, it looks like a fairly strong correlation on that line. The higher the PE, obviously, the lower the return in the forward 10 years. And we're sort of at a position where historically, based on the PEs today, it normally ends up at a negative return over the next 10 years. But with the world of AI, it'll be interesting to see if that holds true. But with the valuations as they currently stand, historically, it has not boded well for forward returns, which is interesting given the time that if you have a look at full-time employment share of the labor force, that continues to fall in the US, and that has often been preceding recessions. Now, we obviously had the COVID fall, but then so much COVID stimulus changed that. It's going to be interesting to see if this holds true like it has back to the 70s, where this falling share of full-time employed actually foreshadowed a recession. But this next chart is actually showing that because of the declining birth rate, just the US labor force participation rate in general is falling. And that is something that we're seeing the world over, that declining birth rates are also bringing down participation rates. Now, in the world of AI, we need less workers, so maybe that doesn't matter. And for all of the people that talk about Bitcoin and whatever else, this is Bitcoin plotted with global M2. So that's global M2 money supply. And it's almost a perfect correlation. The Bitcoin price is essentially just lagging global money supply by about 12 weeks. So if there's impulses into the global money supply, that ends up into a range of assets, and that's really what drives Bitcoin. And so what this guy's putting forward is just track M2. And if M2 is rising, Bitcoin's likely to rise and vice versa. Now, something we often say is a commodity product subject to competition, the marginal profit goes to zero. And with the increasing quality of fake diamonds or diamonds created in the lab diamonds, we're now at the lowest diamond index price going back to some time. Now, there was a spike during COVID, like every asset, but actually now we're down to record lows. And when you have a look at lab-grown diamonds, my understanding is they're becoming harder or almost impossible to tell the difference. And
I've said lab-grown. I don't care. I also said just to make it sparkling, don't even care if it's a lab-grown diamond.
There you go.
I'll probably lose it. You can't buy me a dupe for $80.
This is a chart of total debt to total domestic product across Germany, China, Japan, France, United Kingdom, United States. Essentially, the GDP in the economy is just debt. That's what it's showing. And so as the money supply and debt supplies go on, our GDP goes up. Like, that's not a lot of complexity to it. This is a chart going back to the year 1000. that plots the world's population along with key technological disruptions. So it goes like the printing press, telescope, the steam engine, telegraph, light bulb, Model T car, polio vaccine. I guess what it's trying to just put forward is how a lot of these technological innovations have helped support population growth. But as we know, there are some things that probably threaten that. Hybrid cars, I don't know how that helps population growth, but anyway, it is a shard after all. Okay, let's get to some more serious stuff. So on the left-hand axis, tendency for drama, and then the bottom, time occupied with meaningful tasks. And there's a correlation that the less tendency for drama occurs when you're occupied with meaningful tasks. That allows you to let the small stuff go. The higher tendency for drama comes from less time occupied with meaningful tasks, and that's when you end up getting woked up about everything. And I think that's probably true. I have a feeling we probably don't have a lot of woked up listeners. Any of them would probably have given up on this podcast a long time ago. This brought a slight tear to my eye, only because my fucking memories on my phone now keep reminding me of photos and little videos with emotive music of my children. And I'm now in that phase where I finally... I'm finally realizing what everybody says, that it goes quick. It's taken me a little while to get to this point, but now I look at these photos and the fuckers are disappearing on me, and it's a struggle to maintain balance. But anyway, I haven't even said what this chart is, right? It's the time spent with children on average through your life. And obviously it goes up and then it falls down. And even then I think this chart is wrong, because if I think of the time that I spend with my parents, it would be hours a month, not hours a day. And so that's... Anyway, Ash, that wasn't so bad.
No, the lost section really shifted the mood.
Definitely feel that last one. Far out. Even looking at photos of the kids a year or 2 years ago. Where did that time go?
It should also make you think about spending time with your parents, though. They feel what you're feeling.
That's 100% true. You are exactly right. And that is
coming from someone who doesn't want kids. So I only think about that end.
Yeah, no, that is true. Well, they're in Europe spending my inheritance, so...
As his mum. So, yep.
It's like the
okay.
photos from all the first class lounges.
Oh. Mum said I might come back with a house in Portugal, and I said, fine with me. That's where you put my inheritance. Go for it. I need that EU visa, Mum.
Yeah, what are we looking forward to?
I have a friend's wedding tonight. Well, this afternoon.
Thursday?
Yeah. So beside it being on a Thursday, I am excited for that. It's a very small, intimate wedding, so feel privileged to be a part of that. So really excited to, see them and be a part of that kind of moment. Yeah, also get a bit nervous with weddings, given everything that happened with Dad this year or last year. So, yeah, very excited, but also know that I, might have to step out for a little bit, take a breath.
All good.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to our event with Lauren Hall tonight. That's going to be awesome. And then it was Marin's birthday while we're away in London. So I'm organised for us to have some time without the kids on Saturday night and get away for a bit. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, I also have a wedding. It's on Saturday, but it's in Catherine, of all places. So I'm flying to Darwin tomorrow. Then a group of mates that I went to boarding school with, we're driving to Catherine. So it's, pretty keen to check that place out. I've never been there. It's probably going to be the only time I go there.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you taking Anna?
Nah, just the lads are going, all the boys. None of the girlfriends.
So Louis as well?
Yeah, I wish. I feel so bad as well leaving because Louis is sick at the moment again. So Anna's going to have a handful.
Well, you better make it worthwhile because I'm sure there'll be a debt to pay.
Yeah. I've already been paying it the whole week. Don't worry.
What about you, Don?
Yeah, looking forward to tonight. Just looking forward to tonight. Well, I've got to jump on a Zoom in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to love you and leave you guys. And
thanks, team. I'll see you down the coast, Don.
See you on the flippy dippy.
Bye.
Sounds good. See you guys.
While of the storm, we rise and run. In a world of noise, we get things done. The market's cold, but our fire's bright. We back the founders who are not shy. They said it's tough, they said don't try. But Tribe was born to defy. Through every winter we still believe in vision, grit, and those who lead. Bet on Tribe. We don't just talk, we ride through every storm. We're by founders' side. Top deals, top minds, we choose with care. Returns don't come from playing scared. So stake your claim, come take this ride. The future's calling. Bet on Tribe. Others chase trends, but we seek truth in first-time builders and daring youth. Not every path is paved and clean, but we back bold where others lean. This isn't just a fund, it's fuel for rebels, makers, change as a rule. We walk the streets, not boardroom floors. We open gates, unlock the doors. Bet on Tribe. We're inside meets heart. We're in the trenches, doing our part. Top returns from grounded belief. We turn ambition into relief. Your capital safe where courage thrives. The world gets built when you bet on Tribe. So when the noise says sit this out, remember we're what bold's about. This is the fun that won't retreat. We back the future on founders' feet. Bet on Tribe and take the